Yes. All right. We're live and I've got my cup of tea. Very bookish cup of tea here. Second of the day. Hello. Hello. That came out weird. How's everybody doing? Are we stream hopping? There seemed to be a lot of live streams this morning, which is great. I want to welcome everybody. This is a regular Sunday stream, and the topic today is going to be Readathon Strategy. I don't want to brag, but I'm a pretty master strategist, if I do say so myself. I'm just joking. We have a lot of fun over here on my channel participating in readathons. So if you don't know, I'm Margaret Pinard. I'm a historical fiction author and booktuber. And I love talking about books. I talk mostly about other people's books, but occasionally I chime in about how mine is going. And I have written 7 books, and I am currently drafting my 8th. That's right. March is drafting month for me. I've declared it my own NaNoWriMo just to fit in among my schedule. And it's day 2, and I've had 1 writing session under my belt, and I've got about half of my words. So we're doing well. Starting off well for the day for this first Sunday in March. So very happy to report. I do have some other news, which is that I did get a date nailed down for a Samantha Shannon interview. So if you don't know Samantha Shannon, she's a fantasy author. She's hugely popular. She's got a very popular series called The Bone Season, and that is after her Priory of the Orange Tree success. So she's on the 5th book, The Dark Mirror, which is coming out, and new release. So it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Look at this. It's like shiny and flowers and architecture, like beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that. She will be on my channel and A Mighty Blaze Sunday, March 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And do take note if you're in a different daylight savings habit zone, that will be daylight time for us. So calculate yours based on that. So that's some fun news. And then I was just wondering, is anyone else a fan of Lilith Max? I just discovered her on Pandora, and I really like her voice. It's very, it's very good to work to. I don't know what qualities that entails, but she's got this one that's from the Big Bad Wolf's viewpoint called Big Bad Wolf. So I've been listening to that in case you're curious. Jim's here to say hey. And the 8th is about ORLA Rafferty. It is not. It is about Amelia Rafferty. So I've just written the first mention of ORLA in chapter 2. And I'm excited for a new type of structure. I'm influenced a little bit by a current read, and we'll see if it pans out. I may have to switch it around, but currently finishing up We Are the Origin, which is a Black Author Tuber readathon book, like 4/5 of the way there. And this is by C.M. Lockhart, Black Author Tuber, friend, fellow author, fellow indie author, and she does great things. So it was my first time reading her, and I won't say what the structure is, but if you want to get a sneak peek, you can read We Are the Origin, because I think it's kind of what I was imagining. So we'll see how it works. But yeah, Anita is here this morning. Hello, Anita. I saw Go Indie Now was live earlier as usual. Like I said, lots of live streams going on. So I hope we have lots of stream hopping happening. But what's happening on this channel is a Readathon Strategy Session. Now, like I said, I'm a big fan of a readathon, and I participate in a lot. So what the strategy session is going to be about is explaining and also just like executing how I'm double dipping, triple dipping, planning reads. Because as a mood reader, I'm not really a planner of reads, right? I've got a lot of books unread around me, and which one I pick up, which one I get absorbed into is really difficult to dictate. So I do best when I have lots of choices that can slot in, and I can pick up one of like 10 and they could all work. So how does that work for planning readathons? This is what we're going to be sort of exploring today. But what does it mean to you if you participate in a readathon? I know there's a big range on Booktube. Sometimes just reading one book will work. Sometimes you have to do all the prompts. And at the other end of the range, we have the hardest reading change you'll ever do, which is Stephanie's readathon, hosted by QWordy. And she's tried to make it very, very difficult, but also highlighting indie authors and LGBTQIA authors. So there's that special bias for the channel, which is great. How do you count participating, though? Because there's a range. So maybe we also have our own internal ranges. And speaking of readathons, the one that I'm hosting is the Black Author Tuber Readathon. February is over, but I'm doing the giveaway this Friday for first Friday of March. So you still have a chance to get your name on the spreadsheet, which I have a shortened link for. bit.ly, it's 2025 BAT Readathon, capitalized. And if you participate by reading one book, you can add one to the list for a Black Author Tuber or use one on the list already. You will be entered to win, and I'll do a live drawing on Friday. And the prize is a copy of each of the featured author's books. So that's 4 books, either as ebook if you're international or paperbacks if you're in America. All right, so that is the updates and events and details out of the way. So I'll leave the question of the day up while I sort of prep our session today. I'm going to do this from easiest to hardest for the rest of the reading year. So I can mention I participated in New Year's-a-thon by Donna Marie Reads. That was the first 2 weeks of the year, and I just read 2 books, which is great. And the Black Author Tuber Readathon, which I've just referenced, which I host myself. And that was great, highlighting and promoting channels and works by Black Author Tubers for Black History Month. And then we're going to do our planning. So for March, the easiest is going to be one that only requires 1 book over 8 months. So it's a slow read along. And that sort of stretches the definition of readathon versus read along. I don't usually participate in read alongs because, again, that's 1 book that you have to read rather than choose a book to participate in the theme, which I like better. But I did see Cooks and Books, which is Grace, and her channel name I think is a throwback to something else, but here's the link. And I saw that she'd put up this book, which I've read and she's read, and she wanted to do a reread that sort of does a more deep dive into the themes. How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell, and the subtitle is Resisting the Attention Economy. So it's sort of anti-capitalist. It's sort of part of the resistance movement about how our attention and our leisure and sort of these values that we have are being stolen by tech bros and greedy billionaires. And how do we fight that? And this is a memoir, but also social commentary. So I really liked it. It was a bit scattered. So I think a deep dive with a few other folks is going to be interesting to discuss. So it's just the introduction that we're going to read for March. So that's pretty easy. That's kind of the exception. And that's definitely the easiest one on this readathon list. So starting in March, like a good Roman, we've got 1 down. The other 2 for this month sort of go hand in hand. So for March, since it's the month with St. Patrick's Day in it, it has always been the month for the Irish Readathon. And I think the last couple years, we've had the Celtophile Readathon by Nicole's Bookish Nook. So they sort of blend, right? So Nicole mostly focuses on Irish reads, but she calls it Celtophile in case people want to do Welsh-focused, Scottish-focused, Brittany-focused, Manx-focused. You can get really abstruse here. But I'm going to treat it mainly as a double dipping because Irish Readathon is always stuff that I love to read, one or two, and Celtophile I'm going to use to do some of my Scotland research and UK research. So here's one that is a reread. I was considering another Rebecca Solnit and then decided to go with this one based on my reread of the first page. This is Rebecca Solnit's A Book of Migrations, Some Passages in Ireland. And I'm going to be rereading this. It's been like 20 years since I've read this book, so I hardly remember anything. But it starts off with Rebecca Solnit saying that she's an Irish citizen. And I consider her a pretty American reader. She's all about the social commentary as well. This is a big theme of the channel. But this is, what year is it? It is 1997. 1997, it's over 20 years old. And she acknowledges at the very beginning in her acknowledgments the San Francisco rent control district, which enables her to do independent research. So I feel like this is a very kinship book to No Logo by Naomi Klein, because I think she's an investigative journalist who just did independent research as well. So this is really inspiring and admirable that certain writers do this. And so I thought this would be a great one for both of those readathons. And so double dip right there. The prompts for Irish Readathon for this year are the color, the children, the I can't remember. They're typical prompts. And then the last one is any of the past prompts that you've really liked. So Nicole's are a bit more specific. She says a native-born Celtic author, Seamus Heaney, I think, is one of hers. So Jim might be in luck. And yeah, so you can check out their channels if you want to look into the prompts. But for me, participating in a readathon means the general theme, you get at least one book in there. You get your foot in the door, and that means participating. And also, like, watching the hosts' videos, commenting, maybe looking at other people who have done the videos, if there's a tag associated, like doing the tag, because hosting a readathon is a fair amount of work. And so I think if you're going to say you're participating in it, it's respectful to like refer to those hosting the readathons, tag their channels, show them that you're, interested in their work and appreciate it. So I think that's part of it as well. So yeah, so there's Nicole and I'm co-hosting, and let's see, I've got all the co-hosts here, so I'll pop them in the chat in case you want to check out the exact prompts. And I think I have the video link as well. Yeah, I just put it all in the comments. Sorry if it's a bit messy. So yeah, so that's the Irish Readathon, specifically Irish, that I'm going to be rereading for that. And then the Celtophile prompt that I thought would be like my flavor of prompt is going to be from my research bookcase over here. Where did it go? It is, here we go. So there's two I pulled out partway here. And one is going to be biography related. So, ta-da, Daniel O'Connell, giant name in Irish history, long 19th century political and nation-building voice. It's called Nationalism Without Violence by Raymond Moley. And I don't know that it's a very famous biography. I just happened upon it. It's from 1974 by the Fordham University Press. So maybe not so easy to procure, but again, used bookstores for the win. I just happen upon these things, and I want to know more about him for book 3 in my trilogy. So I think this would be good timing because I'm writing book 2, sort of seeding the field. And so that should be pretty interesting for Celtophile Readathon. And then for the People's Cause, here's another one. Now, this is seeding the field for a different series. I really want to do it like a 1880s, 1890s land back reformist movement in Scotland, because there's some really interesting politics about the peasants who were pushed off the land in the clearances, and how like the last vestiges were finally getting the political power after the reform movement in the UK to address some of these power imbalances and say, hey, like you have to reform how you're doing land allotment, and we don't deserve to live this way. So I found this book online, actually. I actually ordered this off of a used book site. For the People's Cause, from the writings of John Murdoch, and the author is James Hunter. And as you can tell, that's like an 1890s photograph of John Murdoch, who is a activist. Let's see. Published to commemorate the centenary of the Crofters Act 1886, which brought security of tenure to the Scottish Highlands oppressed and exploited crofters. This book celebrates the achievements of a man who did much to bring about the Act's existence. So it talks about the philosophy of the Irish Land League and how he brought those ideas to Inverness in Scotland. And so I think this is going to be really neat to see a bit of one person's work in like Ireland and Scotland, and how things changed pretty slowly, I imagine. But like I've seen some of the meeting minutes of these Crofters Act hearings and the commission that went around collecting research for other books, and it's really fascinating. So maybe we'll get to this, maybe not, but that is a good one in case anyone else is curious about the things that I write about and I'm interested in. So that's March. Let me catch up on the chat for March. Okay, so let me just say that is the link for Grace's Books and Cooks channel and the How to Do Nothing Readathon. There is Irish Readathon. Aoife's the one I usually follow for that. Jim says, for the Irish Readathon, I'll be reading some poems by Irish poets on Thursdays. Avon Boland, Seamus Haney, etc. Excellent. Excellent. And Nicole came in and said, hey there. Eva said, hiya. Hi, Eva. Nicole says, so happy to have you as a co-host on my Celtophile Readathon. Yes. And so there are some of the links to channels, and I think the announcement video is what I put in there. And 4 is a fantastical number, if I do say so myself. Yes, I agree. I'm a 4 on the Enneagram. So, it's always my lucky number. Nicole says, that sounds amazing. Yes. Books that are hard to find, they all end up in my apartment. What can I say? And Leslie is here. Hey, everyone. And Leslie just had her 3-year anniversary, 300 subscriber, 300 something else celebration yesterday, which was great fun. We did some sprints. She did some fun interview questions for like a panel of us who love her channel. So check it out if you are curious. All right, so we're through March. Now, April. What do I usually do in April? People April. So for People April, I have not planned anything yet because I haven't watched the announcement videos that just came out yesterday, I believe. But the hosts of People April, which celebrates biographies and memoirs, are Elizabeth at Bookends and Books, Brian at Bookish Texan, or Bookish, and Roz at Scallydangling About the Books. So they all have announcement videos, which you can check out and subscribe to their channels. They all have very varied taste and give really good in-depth reviews when they have reviews on their channel, which is fun. So I haven't planned for that because, again, mood reader, plenty of, if I'm gonna start Celtophile reads in March and finish in April, they will work for both readathons. That is my philosophy. So yeah. And actually, the Rebecca Solnit as a memoir would work too. So, this is how we strategize. There you go. There's a tip for free. Yeah, I think so, Jim. I can't. I'm so sorry that you chose to read this book that you've tried to read twice. I hope the third try is the charm. Okay, so that's April. May, don't do anything in particular because May of the Moderns is done. And I've got 2 for June. So we'll pass into June, and that is Pride and Caribathon. So Pride, I'm going to save for Qwordy's readathon at the end, which is the hardest reading challenge. We're going easiest to hardest and sort of through the year. So because she highlights a lot of LGBTQ issues and authors, I'll wait to include that in her readathon. But Carivathon, I think, is still run by Karen at Run Right Reads and Comfy Cozy Up. And this is a link for Comfy Cozy Up's video from a while ago, but it lists all of the countries involved in the Caribbean author sort of category, and also some ideas because she talks about books that she's read for Caribathon. So basically, I like the idea of using themed readathons throughout the year to give some attention to different populations, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you only read those populations' books in that month, but it does give them a spotlight for a little bit of time and give us an excuse to say, hey, let's all talk about this now, and like shout out some new names or highlight a book that we've loved. So I like that for positivity and for diversifying your shelf. And, I was really treating the Black Author Tuber Readathon and Black History Month in general as a time when you can load up on recommendations, right? So you put those on your TBR and then you can distribute them throughout the year and sort of get a diverse reading list all the time rather than just in February. But yeah, it's just nice to have like a concentration so that you think through things at once instead of being always torn in so many different directions by how many choices we have of what to read. So that's how I philosophize these readathons. I did just read Callie Browning's book for Black Author Tuber Readathon, and that would make a great Caribathon recommendation. I've done Caribathon recommendations before, so I will have new ones, but maybe I'll have more new ones. But yeah, so Caribathon, Caribbean. What's interesting is that I did some research reading about Caribbean history for my Scotland books because the relationship between the UK and the British Empire in the Caribbean was a fraught one. You may know a little bit about it. We had in America, we learned about not the Iron Triangle trade, I suppose it's called. Iron Triangle, it's different. Triangle trade being sugar to rum to molasses to slaves. And so there was like the 17th, 18th, 19th century, this ship route that was particularly odious. But that established the connection between extractive, exploitative plantations and slavery happening in the Caribathon with the people getting rich on it in the industrial towns in the UK. So that is reflected in a lot of the historical pieces that I bring up. Not in the time. I don't think you'll see it much in the time because it was definitely whitewashed. It was definitely hidden behind screens. So that's what I'm trying to bring forward. But anyway, that was a long digression on Caribathon. I don't have anything planned for that other than knowing and tagging what I have in Storygraph. So we'll come upon that later. HRCYED is ending in July. So that in my like progression through the year, that's where it comes. But I'm going to save HRCYED to the end because it is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. So Jim says he's up to page 42 of 910. That's a lot. Yeah, it was starting slow on Saturday morning, but I'm glad like it's ticking up a little bit. Hopefully it's getting interesting. So July, August. All right, so if you follow my channel for a while, which some of you have, you'll know that August I tend to do like a little bit more intense live streaming work schedule. So either it's interviews or it's sprints or something like this. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do in August, but I've got an idea about nonfiction. And so we'll see. We have a bit of a hole because Nonfiction November is no longer being led by Olive at a Book Olive. And We have Garb August in August, but I don't really participate in that because I don't really enjoy pulp fiction books. So I leave that to Criminale and all the people who have fun doing that. So maybe I'll come at the other end. So pulp fiction is sort of the opposite of nonfiction. So we'll see. We'll see if anyone wants to like combine ideas with me and make something happen for August. September, I don't really have anything. The Shakespeare, the Shorty, I know there's a couple others. I've tried and I haven't really gotten into them. I think Shakespeare, I think I need to see the theatrical part of it to be really like involved and enchanted by it. So I think that might be in my past. um, so yeah, so past the October, I usually try something for Victober. Last year or two, I realized that I wasn't enjoying the reads. Like I was forcing myself to read something for Victober, and I wasn't really finding any new favorites. It was always like, Thomas Hardy, like, and so I like to participate because I love the people who are interested in the Victorian literature. It's a pretty smart group. It's like people who value history and often have a lot of interesting things to say about how history and culture and literature interweave. And so I like to watch those videos and participate, but I need to find a better book, right? I did load up on them over the years, and so I have a fair few to assign, but again, mood reader. So I've got at least a dozen that I could pick depending on the new prompts that they choose. I'll be, I think, set for anything in my version, in my definition of participating, which is just one book fulfills the theme of the readathon. So I'm not worried about that one. I might not finish it, but at least I'll have the materials and be able to choose based on my mood. So October's good. Then we come to November, which is don't really have nonfiction November anymore, but we do have whatever iteration of Indigathon. Indigathon used to be in November. The name was sort of given up, and Kim at Native Lady Book Warrior has sort of taken up different names each year. We had Skoden, we had Studis, and then it turned into a year-long. So I'm not really participating in the year-long other than to say, like, I will read a Native American authored book every so often in the mix of books that I read. But I think I like choosing, like I said, a concentration. So maybe I'll try to do a buddy read for that in November. I've got Marcy Rendon, who's a mystery writer who I haven't read yet, who's Native. I have Billy Ray Belcourt, who's a literary fiction, I think, who I haven't read yet, so I'm not actually sure what genre, but he writes shorter novels and plays, I think. So I've got two new writers on my shelf ready to go in case they apply to any of the prompts or anyone is interested in a buddy read. But that's pretty loosey-goosey. Again, it's expanded to year-long. It's got some very specific prompts, but again, I'm more inspired by the spirit of reading different people's experiences and learning about different cultures than actually like reading a specific book or finding something on the cover or finding a specific year of publication, which is, I think, what Kim did for some of her prompts. And so it's a little bit limiting. So unless you're like, that's the only thing you're going to go for the year, I think that would be really hard to work into with other readathons. But if people are doing it, I'm very happy to see you figure out all those things. That can be fun. And then we've got Climathon. So let me bring up the Climathon on Storygraph. Challenges. Okay, this is pretty amazing, and I was excited to make this announcement on this stream. So here we go. Climathon is another readathon that is year-long that I am co-hosting with Tasman at Tasmetu, Wild Island Farm, and Anya at Well Traveled Books. And before I launch into this, actually, before I share the screen, let me catch up on the chat because I know Eva answered my question and then I'll take that down. I am not one to ask. I am a dreamer who dreams of reading more than a reader, to be honest. Oh, dreams of reading more than a reader. Gotcha. Every readathon I've attempted, I've completely forgotten about within days. So yeah. But the thing is, with being a mood reader or a dreamer, I think that things can cycle so fast with our interest cycle that like we'll come back around before it ends. So there's always that, you know? Yeah. Thanks for letting me play in your sandbox. Anyway, anytime. Okay, so I'll pop that down. And yeah, just a reminder, if you're new and like catching up on readathons here, you can subscribe to the channel and follow along, especially for March, if those are the ones you're interested in. Also, you know who does wrap-ups of readathons to prepare you for the next month is Pages with Paige. So Pages like a book, with Page like the name with an I. She's great. She's in Australia, and she does read along, she does readathons, and she highlights all the ones that she can find on YouTube for the next month. The daily ones, the weekend ones, the 2-week ones, the full month ones, and she does a breakdown and gives you the links for all the places. So if you are curious and wanting to play in that sandbox, go subscribe to Pages with Paige because she is amazing and does a lot of great organizational work, which is so nice for the rest of us. So that's very cool. Okay, so Climathon. Let's see. Here's the announcement. That's so fun. I completed all the prompts. So I don't know if you could see this. I could scan up here. Climathon 2025. There's 12 prompts and I've completed all of them, but we'll get into it here so that I can let people know what is going on. So Climathon, in case you don't know, is a year-long readathon. Tasman's the host here. Oh, 61 participants this year. That's awesome. And she has this mapped out on Storygraph. So we have an overview and we have all the prompts below. They've changed a little bit from last year, sort of consolidated and added 1 or 2 on. But in general, it's books that are helping us understand and appreciate the enormity of the climate catastrophe, and also organize and focus on the positive movements and steps people are making to address it. So little tiny steps, but they're there. So hold on. My throat needed a bath. So we've got prompts like non-human life. So talking about animals, talking about plants, talking about fungi. And I've added a bunch of books. Some of these I've read and some of these I haven't. But basically changing your perspective to look at more than human life, as a lot of native perspectives I've read have called them, which I really appreciate. We've got water. Oh, and here's the thing. As co-hosts, Anya, Tasman, and I divided up the 12 prompts into the 3 of us. And so we're all responsible for sort of featuring certain prompts. And we can do it during certain months or whenever. Basically, we wanted to have coverage throughout the year for Climathon, but also coverage for the different prompts. So my prompts I'm responsible for are food, water, indigenous, and the last one starts with an I. Hold on. Injustice. There we go. Okay, so I think there's a separate activist one, and injustice is separate. So water is one of mine. And if you look here at the prompts, you'll see I've added a bunch of books to this one too. So if you need ideas, or if you just think, oh, water, what does climate change have to do with water? There's so many good books about this. So again, some of these I've read, most of these I haven't. I will say Rising is the one that I read most recently, and Elizabeth Rush is fabulous author. She's talking about coastal lowlands, coastal swamps, and areas that that are changing. So she's documenting like swamp areas and especially mangrove forests and places that are usually intertidal, and how they've been decimated by sea level rise and ocean acidification and several other things. But not only the ecosystem, but also us as part of the ecosystem. So talking about the people who've had to move out of the area, or the resources that are no longer available because the area is dying, like fish stocks, for example. So really fascinating stuff, and part of why I'm so excited to co-host Climathon. So that's the water prompt. We've got Earth, and we've got books for that. We've got an outside setting, so like get outside, touch grass, love that. Here's Injustice, and so you'll see a bunch of the books that I have read, or have on my shelf right now. So actually I can highlight right here as part of the planning. Back to the tab where you can see me. Sustaining Spirit is one of the choices, Naomi Ortiz. And I'm going to be talking with Victoria Writes Books, Talks Books. I forget the name of her channel, but Victoria Stevens will be joining me in May to talk about mental health and climate change work. So yeah, I've been reading a couple books on this, and like this is the third one that I want to get sort of filled in on. So as my contribution to Climathon, I'm hosting monthly TRC themed streams. So one a month, where either someone comes on to talk about their interest in climate change work, or I just talk about what I'm processing or reading at the moment about climate change themes. And so yeah, that's like the thing that I decided to highlight for the year. And it's a nice framing thing for me to keep me on track and sort of focus like a little bit at a time and don't forget. But like not a strict day or date or an amount of people or something. So yeah. So join me for TRC sessions. And that's inspired by Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because the countries that have gone through a truth and reconciliation process had trauma happen, usually violent warfare. And what happened was they had this commission set up to hear people talk through their experiences, feel heard, get it written down, get it recorded as part of history so that we can't ignore it. And then we're forced to try to come up with better ways to do things. So yeah, I think we need to do that for climate. And this is my little effort at community building around that belief. So Injustice is what we have here. Then we've got Indigenous, which is another one that I'm responsible for. And I've got some books that I've read. I've read The Red Deal, Permanent Astonishment, Seed Keeper, all excellent. And these are on my to read list. So even though I've completed all the prompts, I would say that I'm definitely still going to be reading climate focused books because it's such a wide topic. And again, this is because I'm a mood reader and readathons can't hold me back, right? So yeah, still be talking about this later in the year. We've also got Revolution or Change, and some great books there, some very bright covers. We've got Activist, which I love, and I definitely love the Alexander Morton book that I read at the beginning of the year. I'm definitely planning on reading A Bigger Picture, which I have here by Vanessa Nakate. I read a book by Tori Tsui, and she references Vanessa Nakate as another person of color youth activist for climate. And so I was even more intrigued to read her book and her viewpoint. And we've got Food and Farming. I think that's the last one that I'm responsible for. So talking about grocery stores, talking about supply chains, talking about polluted water, talking about droughts and changing growing zones. Like there's a lot to go into this to understand how climate is affecting us. And I want to learn more about all of it. So lots of books in there. connection, which is part of the positive steps to take. And then 11, from a different continent, meaning the author is on a different continent from the one you were on. Pretty easy. And then hope or solutions. And again, that's like positive steps for change. 1 second. Come on, throat. You can do it. So yeah, so lots of great books. And the way that Storygraph challenges work is that you can go into the challenge, you read the overview, and then for each prompt, you go in and see what other people have added as books for that prompt, and that can give you ideas. So if you're curious but like have no idea where to find those books, people have participated and put in books of their own, and you can like add those to your reading list as well. So Climathon in the bag, and now everything else is gravy, and I feel liberated to read all sorts of climate books throughout the year, so that is great. And then let's see, finally we're arriving at HRCYED. Okay, so let me put in Stephanie's channel here because y'all should subscribe. She's great. She's an indie author and highlights queer books and queer stories, queer protagonists. So I'm participating. She started this July last year on her birthday. And I think there's 82, 84, somewhere around there, prompts. And sometimes they're like layered, they're nested. And I started in July without much strategy. The only thing that I've done since July is write down all the books that I've read. And so if they're not highlighted, they're DNFs or like didn't choose them. So I started, this is how I strategized for HRCYED, and I'll put a bookmark in here so you can skip to this part if this is what you're interested in. But I wrote the book that I was reading and the prompts that I thought it might satisfy. And of course, there's some that you can double dip and some that you can't. So I had to keep track of that on her lovely bingo card and tracker. She's got a great system set up. And again, a lot of work. So this is why I'm shouting out. So amazing that she's doing all this work to help people find new stories, find new voices, and then do some fun, like just challenges for the heck of it. So the prompts are in the middle, and then I put the letter, and I think she allowed the middle name as well, but I didn't know about that for like the first 70 books. And so I just have the first letter of the first word in the title and the first letter of the first name and last name. So I have 3 letters possible, I think, for all of these. And so I wrote those down, but I didn't choose which one it would satisfy until yesterday, 2 days ago. So that I wouldn't be fumbling so badly on this live stream, I decided I need to figure out how I'm going to do this, right? Because like I have all these books, I have all these initials, but I don't know which ones are rare or common. So I don't know, like, I don't want to assign a book to a letter and then have to take it back because that's going to be super annoying. So what I did was where's my graph paper here? So I wrote out all the letters of the alphabet and I started assigning them as I went through all the books that I'd read, right? And so like I quickly realized, oh, there's a lot of ABCs, there's a lot of VWs, there's a lot of MNRSTs. Okay, fine. Like it's Jeopardy, you know? Or not Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. And then I came to the end of the books that I had read and I was missing F, Q, V, and X. And so I figured out the one for F. I just switched one that was more common and had more options. And I figured out Q. And I figured out the one that I had V and X both in it. So it would have to go for X because I couldn't find another X in my whole library. So that was the default. And then give myself some options for V. So you're going to join me while I write in all these books and narrow down the last book. So here are all the prompts. So this is like the hard part, right? So this is what's going to take more time. Okay. All right. So the first prompt is 500-page book in one day. And I want to read The Last Thing You Surrender by Leonard Pitts Jr. for that. And I have not designated a day yet. So it is not yet green. She's got this set up with formulas so that when you fill in all the things and turn them all green, the checkbox turns this green and you know you're done. I filled it in pink to show myself that these are the ones that you can double dip, but that's got to go before we finish. Yeah. So Dear Yawada by Anita Hess was the first one. Anita. Book and Dagger for B. We've got Heirs of the Body by Carola Dunn for C. Democracy in Retrograde for D. Wait, am I sharing this? No, I'm not. Okay, sorry. You're going to watch me do this. This makes it a little more interesting. So this is the bingo card and tracker that I'm working in here. Finally filling in the alphabet because we're getting down to the finish line, folks. All right. For E, I've got Scottish Christmas by Miss Emma Bennett for E. For F, I've got Framed in Fire by Iona Wishaw. For G, I've got How to Catch a Duke, I believe, by Grace Burrows, one of my favorite historical romance mystery authors. H is The Good Fight by Harry somebody who's an Australian boxer. I picked it up from Libro. I don't know. It felt like something different, and I was in the mood for something different. So, yes. Ladies Guide. Oh, that's right. Ladies Guide to. It's like Hunting a Fortune. Ladies Guide to Fortune Hunting, I think, and that's by Sophie Irwin. So that's the I. Whoops. We can spell. J is Key to You and Me, which is also a new release, which is also one of my rainbow prompts, which was fun. It's J because it's by shoot. Let's see. I want to give the authors their due. J. Robin Brown. There we go. Okay. So there's the author. K. Sorceress Comes to Call. That's by T. Kingfisher. Excellent, excellent book. L is Life of Henri Brulard, which is a terrible book, but I got through it. M is Nicked by M.T. Anderson. Great book. Loved it. N is for a novel bookstore. And novel is the first word in the title because she's not counting a, an, or the. So that's how we got that. O is The Miracle of Trees, which is by a Norwegian author whose first name starts with O. I can't remember. It was a beautiful book, but very, very tiny and hard to read. P is Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. Q, I haven't read it yet, but The Alice Network is by Kate Quinn. This is when I can start showing books here. So this is also going to come up on a later prompt, but Kate Quinn, I've read one co-written book by her and one book by her, and I really liked both, so that should be a good one. Almost done with the alphabet here. R is, oh yeah, it's my webcomic, Rewriting Extinction. Worked for another prompt. S is Shopkeeping by Peter Miller, which I loved last summer. T is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard, my first book by her. I loved that world system, magic system, so I may come back to that series. You, unfortunate side effects of heartbreak and magic, I think is what it's called. V, okay, so it's not going to be Voyage because I have to use that for X. So it's either going to be Vicious by V.E. Schwab or Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. And let me go get it. I thought I had all these together. Darn it. There we go. So that is the Queen of Exiles, Vanessa Riley. She is a historical fiction writer. She's got a very sassy social media account on Instagram and TikTok, and she loves doing fashion stuff, but she's also a super in-depth researcher. I read her book before this, which was titled Island Queen, and it was narrated by a great actress. And I've also read The Duke, the Lady, and a Baby, and I haven't read her historical mystery series. She's very like trying all different things, and I love that. She's great. She's been on the channel before, so Vanessa Riley. But V.E. Schwab, I may read both this year or before July for the challenge. But yeah, which one will be for V? Who knows? It's part of the fun. We had a bunch of W's. So let's see. W. Oh yeah, master, slave, husband, wife. That's a W because it's by Ilian Wu. That's right. X, we've got Voyage Around My Room by Xavier. Where did I put his? There we go. Xavier de Mestre. So this is a classic. This is a tiny book. It's during a plague year, someone had to stay at home, and was it a plague or was it a punishment? Actually, I think it was a punishment. Yeah, let's see. He was confined to his room for 42 days in the 1790s as a punishment for dueling. And it's translated by a local author. And so it's an indie direct pick as well, which is another prompt. So it's a double dipper and a great X prompt there. Let's see. X. But I haven't read it yet. Oh, I did put this one in. So for the Y, I did Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn. And for the Z, Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water. All right. Whew. So I won't bore you with the filling in the green highlights. I'll do that formatting stuff later. But yeah. Okay. So that's 2 prompts. 2 prompts only. And for the, let's see, let's highlight all the ones that I've read here. One, two, three. So I'm only 3 away from finishing this alphabet prompt, which is great. So yeah. All right. 3 more blurbs on a book. This was a fun one. So I'll check in with the chat before I explain my theory or my approach. Jim asked, does V.I. Warshawski count for a V, a character, not a title or author? You know, I thought about this too, because there was an X in an Indian mystery series, but it was the series name. And she didn't specify the series coming into the equation at all. So I said, that's probably stretching it too far. But yeah, that's a good question. If you've got questions about HRCYED, I have been in the Discord, so I might know the answer if you have questions, or if you have other readathon questions, let me know. Jim says, I have a VR Warshawski on my TBR, Pay Dirt, 24th novel featuring the PI created by Sarah Paretsky. Yes. Did she... 24th novel. Okay, she didn't have to finish. I was thinking like the Sue Grafton had the alphabet one, and I think someone else finished the last one, but it didn't get to Z. I think she stopped at W or X. So close. Hi, Gareth. Welcome. Gareth says Vicious is great. I know. I've heard good things. V. Schwab has such a varied catalog. I think that people have different reactions to different books. I've liked everything that I've read by her so far. But I haven't read Vicious. And I don't have a copy of Vicious, but I have a copy of Vengeful. So this is why I've been like waiting to read that one to read Vicious first. So my library doesn't have a physical copy, and we'll see. We'll see how I get a copy. Oh, wow. Jim says V.E. Schwab is probably my favorite fantasy author. Oh, I knew that. I think V.E. Schwab and I were on your most read authors list at one point. Your most read authors during your Booktube career is a very different list from well, I'm blanking on his name. The other Texan booktuber. He hasn't been around much lately, but he does the rankings of the book battles, and then also the rankings of most read, which is interesting to see. But yeah, that's fun. Okay, so back from the chat and back to the prompts for HRCYED. We've got 3 or more blurbs on a book. Okay, so I took Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting, and all right, so wait. Hold on. This is the work that I put in for this, right? So I'm pretty proud of this. Where did I do it is the question. There's been lots of pages dedicated to HRCYED so far. I think it's on the other notebook. Where's the other notebook? Where's the other notebook? Underneath the planner. Let's see. Is it here? Yes. Okay. So this is from a few days ago when I was planning for this live stream, because they do take planning. And I said HRCYED targets. So I knew the first 2, the alphabet, the 500-page, fine. 3 blurbs is basically look for a book that has at least 3 authors' blurbs on it. And if you don't know what blurbs are, it's like when another author will give a quote in support of the book that they put up to promote how great it is. And what I learned is that the recent trend in blurbs in certain genres, especially if the author is really big, is to go from publications. So Leonard Pitts Jr., Washington Post. And on the back, I've got Shelf Awareness, which is a blog online, Chicago Sun-Times, New York Times Book Review, Seattle Times, All Things Considered. And then we get Gabrielle Union, who is not an author. And then we get Jennifer Weiner, who is an author. So there's one on this whole book. So it was a little harder than I thought. I sort of vaguely thought, well, I have plenty of historical fiction and they do each other's books. So I should be able to find most of what I have on my owned shelf, right? My owned TBR. But I tried with fantasy. So I looked at Olivia Atwater, and I could have tried 10,000 Stitches, which I just read. And then I could have gotten Alex Harrow, India Holton, and Tasha Suri. But I don't have any of those authors' books. So it would have been a library gamble. And then I looked at Dirayawada, which I don't have because I read in an audiobook format, but I assume it's okay to look at their purchase page and look at the author quotes there if you don't have a physical copy, because what else would you do? And so that's historical fiction, and it was blurbed by I put the books down instead of the authors. Secret River, which I do have, The White Girl, which I don't, but on my wish list, and Miranda something, like another author I was maybe going to try, and I was like looking again, maybe I can find another combination. So then I looked at romance, historical romance, How to Catch a Duke, which I had read, and she was blurbed by Julia Quinn, which I don't have any of, Elizabeth Hoyt, which I don't have any of, and Mary Below, which I've read before, but I don't have any of. So I was like, I don't want to buy more books for this. I want to read what I own. Then I lucked onto this historical romance. What do we want to call it? Coven? Let's call it a coven. So I read Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. It was very good. Sophie Irwin. And then she was blurbed by Sophie Kinsella, hence my Sophie Kinsella read-in yesterday, which I finished a book from. This one. Adored it. It was very fun. And then the other two that I have to read are Fiona Davis, which I have. Oh, come on. I did organize this. I guess I'm like seeing right past it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. The Lions of Fifth Avenue. I missed the spine. Fiona Davis's book, historical fiction that I haven't read yet. So this one I will have to read. And Kate Quinn, The Alice Network. And I had this on my shelf to read. So two more great historical fictions that I'm very excited for. So yes, that's how I worked through four different combinations and finally found one that fit. All I had to get was the Sophie Kinsella book from the library, and that is now checked off. So, oh yes, Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Fee is the other Texan booktuber. I think Jeremy and Brian should like meet up and hang out because they're both teachers. They both have fabulous book tastes, and they both make fabulous videos. So I don't know if they've ever thought about it. That'd be fun. Okay, so that's the 3 blurbs. What else have we got here? I need to make it bigger for myself. Garage sale books. Okay, so this is trying to promote like hand-to-hand selling, like you get it by chance, and it can't be from an independent bookstore, and most of my books are from independent used bookstores, so this is difficult because I'm not sure I'm grasping her distinction. Like garage sale could work, or in like flea market, she said, or whatever. So I'm not sure, but I need to follow up on this. I'm pretty sure like I'll be able to find something, and I've got 4 more months, so I'm not too worried about that one. AuthorTuber books. So as we already saw, Emma Bennett's very own, AuthorTuber's very own Emma Bennett, Scottish Christmas, I read. AuthorTuber's own Tiffany T.L. Russ is, I think, her author name. I read Elfing Mind, which is great. So that's done. Then I have AuthorTube's own Maiden of Artemis, which I'm going to read, which I haven't read yet, by Louise Barr. So very excited for that one. Maybe in March, maybe in April. Haven't decided that yet, but that's on the list. Maybe this is too small for you guys to see. I can't hardly see it on my screen, so let me make it a little bigger. We Are the Origin. So that is by AuthorTube's own C.M. Lockhart, who is, like I said, I'm almost finished with this, so that's going to be great. And she's a fab indie author to follow. And then finally, Girl with the Hazel Eyes by Kelly Browning, who was my first featured author last month. And that was a Caribbean literature book. So that was great too. So I'm almost 4/5 of the way through on this prompt, which is great. The next one is a series of 4 or more, and read all of them, and it has to be finished. So I was definitely on the lookout for only 4-book series, which was kind of hard. So I walked into a independent bookstore here in Portland, and it was like, okay, here are the parameters. I need to read a series that I haven't started before, that is only 4 books, that is finished, that I can, actually enjoy. And so they took me to, So You Want to Be a Wizard, which was like a early 90s middle grade series. And I read the first one, and it was great. It was a great book, A lot like Harry Potter, Wrinkle in Time, like a really good young adult vibes, exploring portal fantasy. But then I went back, and the price of the second, third, and fourth books in the series for a mass market paperback was twice as much. And I just felt so indignant and resentful. I decided to change my series selection. So I had also had this one on my list, and this is also an older series by Amanda Scott, and it's called Boudica. I think the series is called that. The first one is Dreaming the Eagle. So I've had the first, third, and fourth book for a long time, but I couldn't find a freaking copy of the second one, Dreaming the Bull, and it was just impossible to find. So I finally just went online and got a used copy for like $5 and $5 shipping. So I have the full series, and I need to start so that I can do 1 month and get it done. So this is definitely a March read, Dreaming the Eagle. 1, because I need to get started on my book series for HRCYED, but 2, because it's a Celtophile read, because it's Boudica, who was one of the Celtic tribes that inhabited Britain before the Romans. So it's going to be a novel of resistance and about a historical figure, but also just like wonderful imagined history, which is going to be great. Oh, I forgot to go over the other like ebooks I have on tap for the Celtophile and Irish Readathon. My iPad is airplane mode so that they can't rip away my ebooks from my cold dead hands. But what I have downloaded and they can't take away from me is Nicole's own book. So Nicole's Bookish Nook has a Irish fantasy, and it's called Danu's Curse, with a great cover. And this is her writing as Nicole Pierman. So I'm excited for that one. And it's an ebook, so a little bit of format diversity. I like books better, but so yeah. So far for Celtophile and Irish Readathon, I've got Rebecca Solnit, James Hunter, Raymond Moley for the 2 biographies, Danu's Curse by Nicole Pierman, and Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott. That's a fair March stack there. Okay. What else have we got for HRCYED, the hardest reading challenge? So after deciding the book series, we're good to go. I'm going to start. It's going to be one of my later ones. That's fine. We have 5 books from 5 small booktubers. And what that means is recommended by. And so this is where my system for tagging in Storygraph comes in handy, because in Storygraph, when I get a booktube recommendation or a recommendation in general, I tag it with the name of the person who recommended it to me. So you will see, for example, in my not climate change. This is just my regular thing here. Let's look at all the recent reads. Make sure this is, yeah, it's showing. All right, so come on, Storygraph. I've got tags for various things. So I read it from the library, and it's for the HRCYED Readathon, but no recommendation. Climathon, nope. Climathon, nope. 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 ARC, nope. Audiophile. Okay, so that doesn't count. That is who recommended it to me. That's where I found the recommendation. The Slow Road North by Rosie Schaap. But they're not a booktuber. So continuing library. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Worn, A People's History of Clothing was recommended by Lisa in Bookland. So that is a small booktuber. Stephanie defines small as below 5,000. So plenty of people to choose from. And that's how I was helped. This isn't really for the readathon. It's for reminding me to go back and give feedback to that person, or just sort of store in my mind, like, do my interests or preferences for reading align with theirs? And Lisa in Bookland, though she hasn't put up videos recently, has given some great recommendations. So I'm like hoping she comes back onto Booktube. Let's see. back to booktubers. So Stella by Starlight is one. I should put down who recommended these. This is by Eva. Yinka is by Aoife, which is kind of funny. It's like, I think that's who recommended it. Nicked is from Mighty Blaze. Heartbeat of Wounded Knee is by, who did that? I know this one, Lisa in Bookland. Who did Heartbeat of Wounded Knee? I think that was Native Lady Book Warrior. So I'll verify those before I go. But yeah, 5 books from 5 small booktubers. And a Mighty Blaze, I mean, I volunteer with them. I don't know if that's against the rules, but like they're below 5,000. And that's where I saw the interview that motivated me to read that book. So, I mean, technically that's true. I did complete this prompt. Oh, wait. So yeah, I completed that one. So now it's green. 5 books in other countries or the author from other countries. So this is a bit tricky. So if you don't care about the details, sorry, I'm going to explain it. So the book has to be set in a country where you're not from, or the author is from a country where you're not from. And you can only use the US, the UK, or Canada once if that qualifies. So for me, I can't use the US because that's where I'm from, and I can use the US, UK, and Canada only once. So Novel Bookstore is set in France, and it's by a French author. Nicked is by an American author, but it's set in Italy and Turkey or Lebanon, I believe. They sort of go on a journey, which is great. Readathon is set in and by an author from Australia. So that's that. Actually, I don't think you can use UK or Canada for this prompt. Australia you can use once, but you can't use it even if you're not from UK or Canada. So France, Italy, and Lebanon and Syria. Australia once. Sugar in the Blood set in the Caribbean. I think is it Barbados? I think it's Barbados. And Dark Mirror, she's from the UK. So maybe I haven't done this because that doesn't work. Okay, let me uncheck it. I'll find another one. So I think I have finished this. Let's see. Set somewhere not UK, US, or Canada. Go back to the list here, and it can't double dip. So let's see. And fantasy doesn't work. Oh, well, no, I guess that's too much of America. Book and Dagger might work. Let's see. Frontier, XX, Moonlight. Oh, Woven in Moonlight. Well, it's set in a fantastical Bolivia. Does that count? I think that counts. We'll put it in here and check it later. It's like a historical fantasy. It was really good. All right, then we have the Queer Rainbow Challenge. So this is a lesbian, a gay, a trans, a bi or pan, a questioning, an intersex, and an asexual. So we're looking for representation, and it has to be the protagonist. So this is a little tricky because you don't know until you read it, but there's a lot of like helping going on in the Discord. So Countess is a novella for lesbian. Nicked I used for gay representation. Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water for trans representation. Clear by Karis Davis is giving by pan for the protagonist. And Questioning, I use The Key to You and Me, which is that YA book at the beginning for the alphabet prompt. Intersex and Ace, I am still looking for. I think I'm using Vicious for Ace rep. And intersex I'm still looking for. There's a few author names floating around, but I haven't found one. So if you have an intersex protagonist who you can share for that prompt, I would love to hear suggestions. 5 lowest rated books. Okay, so I don't have a way to sort in Storygraph by read and rating, because Storygraph de-emphasizes ratings on books. You have to go into each book to see the average rating, right? It's part of their philosophy, which I think is fine. But that means that people were like, how do I find this? And Stephanie said, well, if you have Goodreads books that are below 3.5, so that's like sort of a lower rating, that'll count for this prompt. So for that one, I went back to Goodreads, even though I don't update it anymore, and looked for books that I have that I thought might be lower than 3.5. And what I found was Life of Henri Boulard. Yep. This is a barely fictionalized memoir by a 19th century famous writer, Stendhal, and it was so boring. So I agree with that rating. The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic, it's newer and it's pretty good, but again, it didn't come together for me, so I understand the average rating. The Air by Grace Burrows, I liked it. It was fine. It's like a workday romance, right? And very sweet, but apparently others didn't. We have The Man of Feeling, which is another 18th century book that I read as sort of background for what people thought was virtuous behavior for my 19th century book. And it's like, before people did novels, what they did was fictionalize memoirs. So they would say, oh, I found these pieces of memoir, these scraps of paper in a drawer, and it was just like scenes that weren't connected, that was supposedly about someone's life and how he went in search of virtue, and he was sort of like a Candide, like a what's it called when you put characteristics of a bunch of different things on one person, that kind of thing. It was weird, not great. So for the last one, I actually was surprised to find Waiting for the Night Song by Julie Carrick Dalton, below 3.5 for the rating. This is a book that I got because I heard it was climate fiction, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it. Thankfully for the challenge, because yeah, I got a used copy, I believe. And I heard about her from A Mighty Blaze. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's kind of in the same category as the one that Jim really liked, the climate book about wolves in Scotland. That author and Julie Carrick Dalton are comp titles. And so I think I'll like it. But yeah, so that is almost done. 1 out of 5, so 20% to go. The next prompt is direct from the indie author book. So that's going to be Voyage Around My Room. I asked Stephanie, and she said if it's a translator that you got it directly from, that counts. So that's good. I haven't read it yet. Local author bookstore purchase. So this is actually not a bookstore. It was a stationery store. They do pens, they do printing, and they had a copy randomly of Shopkeeping by Peter Miller, who owns his own bookstore in Seattle. So I picked it up, and I just loved the book because it's so random. So I figured that would work for local because he's one state away, and not someone I like had a relationship with. So I thought that was pretty important. Okay, I haven't done this one yet, but it can double dip. So let's go through M's. M's. Who we are. I'm just starting on a different page here. Let's circle this. Pencil. Where's a pencil? I think I dropped my pencil over there when I was writing this morning. Oh, I don't trust myself to do it in pen, so hold on. Shout out library systems that give out free pencils. Okay, so who we are. I don't even remember what that book is. It's got an M. Who we are. Why can't I think of it? Shoot. I could have searched current. No. know it's like a specific angle. Oh, that's right. That's the judge's memoir. Okay. Who We Are by Murray Sinclair. All right. I'll write that in because I couldn't remember it on the spot. An A, Ghost of Caribou. And that is an A because it's by my friend Alice. Alice Henderson. R. We've got an R for Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. That was a great book. I'm glad to read one of those authors' books because I have another of hers already. G. Oh. Can't use that G. Let's look for another G. Okay. How the World Ran Out of Everything. That is by... Who's it by? It's some big newspaper reporter. Peter S. Goodman. Okay. Cool. A again. American Bulk. Perfect. By Emily Meister. That was a really good essay collection. Whoops. Am I showing the right screen? Is this legible for you guys? Hope so. Another R. Okay, Restaurant of Lost Recipes. That was so sweet. That's one of the Japanese translated cozy books. I don't remember the author's name. Shudder. Oh yeah, that was scary. Okay, so the first, what's her first name? What is her first name? I know it's Emerson. It's not Rachel. Like Radisson. Nope. Ramona Emerson. All right. That's a indigenous authored book, and it's about a native person who has visions but is also a crime scene photographer, and it starts with like bits of bodies all over the road in excruciating detail. So it was like, woo. I returned it to the library. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I got it back later because she was so good with the interview with her next book that I was like, okay, I'll give it another chance. All right, so T, we're going to do, here we go, Man Who Died Laughing. And that is by a British guy who lives in India with his family. Wait. Wrong field. Tarquin Hall. What a British name, am I right? Tarquin Hall. Okay. Another A. Another A that hasn't been used up. Okay, not on my watch. Alexander Morton. N. Do we have an N? Do we have an N? N. Oh, Red Deal. There we go. Red Deal. That was hard to get through. It was pretty boring. Another N. Now you know my middle name. Okay. Running backwards. So I got to go forwards on the titles again. All the papers. Which ones have I not used yet? I've started putting X's, so let me look for an X and an N, if that makes sense. Already used that N. Okay, here's a bunch of X's. There we go. Truth according to Ember. Oh, yay. Okay. Danica Nava. That was a great one. It's a workplace romance set in either Oklahoma or Missouri. And it's modern day, but there's this native gal who's like trying to get a leg up and get started in a career, and she meets an interesting native guy at the office. It's pretty cool. E. Let's see. Can I get an E that's unused? E. Oh, yeah. Elfing Mine by T.L. Russ. There we go. Love it. P. P for Hearts of the Missing. Oh gosh, who is that by? That was a good one too. That was like a little bit gruesome as well. There's like medical dissection. But that is not a native author. It's a person who is writing about a non-native investigator in the tribal police. But then there's lots of like tribal culture and lore and stuff being explained. So that's Carol Potenza for the P. I. Here we go. Intersectional environmentalist. That wasn't a very enjoyable read either, but good to know. N. Another N. I think I'm running out of N's. Let's see. Here we go. No logo. There we go. Naomi Klein. A. Oh. Ooh, I must be hungry. Oh gosh. Okay, so Child of the Jago. That was pretty gruesome as well. Who's that by? That was like a Victorian read. And I wasted it outside of October. Arthur Morrison, 1896. Oof. Okay, as soon as I get through this, I'm almost done. I'll come back to the chat. R, that hasn't been used yet. Rising, Elizabeth Rush. Great. And D hasn't been used yet. Clear. Karis Davies. There we go. Yay, we did it. And I've read all these. None of these have none of these are to read, so that's awesome. Woohoo! Okay, let's see. Jim says, I have a Russian writer on this month's TBR, Ludmila Ulitskaya. That's a great name. A Russian writer. Huh. What's the book? Is it a thriller? Is it a nonfiction? Ah, thank you. Yes. Okay, so Julie Carrick Dalton's Waiting for the Night Song, in my mind at least, is a comp title for Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, which Jim really liked in his review. Jim, oh, yeah. Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin has a character, Therum, who might be considered intersex. I think that's what I was considering. Let me put that in so I don't forget. Rainbow Challenge, intersex. So not turned green, but, you know, in there as a suggestion so I don't forget. Thank you, Jim. Great suggestion. Okay, so we're done with up to my name. What else do we have? Spiffo non-finalists. Okay, so here's a great one for author tubers. This is, okay, so it's a little tricky. Someone finally like put together the list and there's hundreds of titles. So SPIFFO stands for Self-Published Fantasy Book Off. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically a competition where people vote for their favorites, right? So you get nominated, people vote, and it's indie authors and it's in the fantasy genre. And for this prompt, it was people who had not won and were not finalists, but were nominated. So it was sort of like a lot to choose from. And these are the ones that I picked out that I would want to read. So I've already read 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater just a couple days ago. I also have A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart on that list. I haven't read him, so I'm curious. Gatekeeper Staff by Antoine Bandele, who was on Black Author Tubers last year for a bit, so that was fun. He sounds great. Danu's Curse is one of my reads for this month for Irish and Celtophile reads by our own Nicole Pearman. And Bones to the Wind, which is by Tatiana Obi, and she's been on my to-read list for a long time, so I prioritized that when I saw her on that list. So exciting. We'll see. Those could be swapped out because, you know, there's more on the list and there's more people I know for sure. So you'll see only one of those is green, so they could change before the end. Completed webcomic. I read Rewriting Extinction, which is climate themed, but very long. But they're just comics. They were just like one panel comics. It was a big series to go through. I did that last summer. Okay, the next prompt is the new release read in the month it was released or 30 days after the release date if it was released at the end of the month. So I've done pretty good on these because of Libro.fm, because I have the arcs there to read. Otherwise, it would be rather difficult because I don't buy new books right as they're released because it's usually hardcover and it's more expensive. Democracy in Retrograde, A Sorceress Comes to Call, Book and Dagger. I loved all of these. They were really good. The Indian Card, really good, 5-star. Puck and Prejudice is a hockey romance, the first ever. Pretty good. Elfing Mine by T.L. Russ, also really good. January, Yeonam-dang Smiley Laundromat. This did not jive with me. You know, like Korean translated work I've loved before, and it's like cozy. It's a laundromat. It's a slice of life. It's lots of people whose lives intersect. But there's a twist and it's weird. So I was not on board with that. And then Wooing the Witch Queen, 5-star fantasy romance. Loved it. First time reading Stephanie Burgess and I really liked her style. So we'll definitely read more of her. And then for March, I have Sirens as a possibility. And then April, May, June, I don't know. So those are not even filled in. But yeah, there's no hope for me getting library books on hold when they first come out because there's too many people who want to read them. So basically, these are Libro.fm audiobook reads. So yeah, that's how I'm. And Tiffany's is a friend's book. So I definitely wanted to support for a holiday romance. Top 10 book in the year you were born. I wrote down... So back when I was first strategizing, I think I put down some suggestions. Maybe not. New releases, Queer Rainbow series, Kobo, Kindle, Biffbo, lowest rated. I put it somewhere. Where would it be? Top 10. I think it might be in the notebook. I'm trying to visualize where I put it. Let's see. Nope, that's TRCs. Nope, that's research. HRCYED. Oh, there's my, okay. Here's my last attempt at, so I did some stuff a couple days ago, but I was right. My HRCYED planning was on this spiral notebook. What did I do for 1981? The Lord God Made Them All by James Herriot was a top 10 book, which might be a fun read. A Light in the Attic by Shel Silverstein might be a good read. I mean, of course I've read that from school, but like, have I read it? I don't know. Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Owell. I've heard mixed things. I think BookBuds just used it for one of their tags and said they really liked it. It's a long fantasy book. What's interesting is Jane Owell, I just learned that she had a full floor of one of the high-rise apartments that was near me in the neighborhood here, because she's an Oregon author, and it was sold recently, and they had pictures of it like in the realtor's website, and it was like, wow, an author can make that much money to own a floor of a high-rise apartment building. Like, it just blew my mind. So that was kind of cool to learn, but I don't know if I would jive with that style of book. We've got The Unfinished Tales by Tolkien, which would be cool. We've got Tar Baby by Toni Morrison and Trade Winds by MMK, who is a historical fiction like saga. So I've got some possibilities that I wrote down, but none of them are totally jumping out at me. So I should definitely like pick something from that to go after, because they might take a while. Yeah. And now you know the year that I was born. Are you younger or older? Let me know in the comments. Oh. Okay, so Anita's throwing perhaps a wrench in the works by saying, I don't think 10,000 Stitches was her nominated book. It was Half a Soul. Okay, I will go back and check that. Thank you for letting me know. I may have made a technical error here. There we go. So I'll just put a question mark to go back. I'll have to find that page where all the non-finalists were. Oh, Kara says, Left Hand of Darkness is brilliant. I think that about every Le Guin book I've read too. I haven't read that many. I read the Earthsea series and I thought it was fine. It was kind of like So You Want to Be a Wizard, and it kind of dawdled. And then I feel like the later books changed. So I'm sort of undecided. I haven't read her bigger books like Left Hand of Darkness. I have read her writing craft book, which is Steering the Craft, and I liked that. I haven't reread it, so it's been like 5 years or so. But yeah, it's kind of like Stephen King. I like his writing book, but I haven't even read any of his fiction. But she's a giant in the realm. Yes, fully admit. Let's see. So, okay. One of the prompts I've completed was finish 3 books in 24 hours. Snow in April. What was that? See, this is why I don't try to read 3 books in a day, because I don't even remember. The Duke Wins a Bride was an ebook I got from a recommended historical romance author, which was fine. The Miracle of Trees was that tiny book that I was like, it's so pretty, but also like really surprisingly technical and not really up my alley. Oh, Snow in April was either it's a romantic suspense from back in the day. I can picture the cover. It's not Rosemary something. Anyway, it's an author who was very popular in the 80s and wrote romantic suspense, and it was a shorter one, so it was fine. One of these had to be more than 300 pages, and I think Duke Wins a Bride was more than 300 pages in the paper version. So yeah, done. Recipe in a book. Okay, so the Smiley Laundromat did have a really good, not like a page of recipes because it's an audiobook, but it had the description of someone making this cherry tomato side dish, which I haven't made yet, but I will. So I put that in there. It was really nice. The Genre Challenge, one of every genre, which I have read. Rebel Skies was an audiobook, fantasy. Countess. The Countess? I think it's just Countess. That's the novella that is rooted in Caribbean anti-capitalism, which is great. Mystery thriller that I used was Framed by Fire by Iona Wishaw. Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher filled in for the horror. How to Catch a Duke by Grace Burrows was my romance pick. Unclaimed is a historical romance, but I use that for historical because, hey, it works. The Good Fight for nonfiction by that Harry guy in Australia. Literary, I used Dirayawara because that was what someone called it. It's historical, but also literary. That's it for that prompt. Done. I don't have a crowdfunded book yet. This is for anything that has like an Indiegogo or more likely a Kickstarter. So if you guys have questions, sorry, not questions, suggestions for books that are running a Kickstarter right now. I know Shannon's is SD Houston, but it got fully funded right away. So I'm looking for someone who might need support more than someone who's already fully funded. Could be wrong, but I think I picked up Half a Soul from Spiffo. I've already read Half a Soul, so that wouldn't work for me. But I'll look back at the list because I know you're on the list, and I have at least one of your books. So we'll see. We'll see if it's the one that's on the list. So picky, Stephanie. So picky. Yeah. Let's see. It might be the historical rather than the fantasy nominated one. Let's see. Rainbow challenge. Okay, so genre challenge is all the genres, and rainbow is just like color on the cover. So that one was a pretty easy one. Case of the Man Who Died Laughing is the British mystery. Dirayawara is the Australian literary historical. Sugar in the Blood. It was a stretch yellow, but it was like a substantial cover on the color. That's the Caribbean history memoir. Scratch. That was about writers and how they earn money and how they feel about earning money. And that was definitely green. That was an interesting one. So You Want to Be a Wizard? My aborted series attempt worked for the Rainbow Challenge. How to Catch a Duke was purple. That was, I think, Grace Burrows. Or maybe that was Sophie Irwin. That was Sophie. No, Ladies Guide to Fortune Hunting is Sophie Irwin. So that other one must be Grace Burrows. That was pink. Democracy in Retrograde, white. Sorceress was black. And Life as We Have Known It. What was that? Life as We Have Known It. So for the longest time, I thought this would be the Archdruid book. And then I found Life as We Have Known It. Wait, what's that? Because as a mood reader, which I am, you can stare at a book for months and months and be like, I just don't feel like reading you. Oh, okay. Life as We Have Known It. That's right. That's the, that was pieces of testimony and basically little bits of memoir written by members of the Cooperative Women's Guild. So it's from about 1920. It's got a foreword or like a preface by Virginia Woolf. And it's basically trying to represent women's guilds and working women in the co-op movement, edited by Margaret Llewellyn Davies. So I had a copy of that, and it was an interesting sort of collection, but not very coherent, just an interesting piece of history. Okay, so Anita's coming in with all the good fantasy information here. J.E., so that's Jane Taylor, has a Kickstarter running right now. Ooh, Eleka, the Hidden Kingdom Special Edition. Okay, I'm going to star that. We're going to click that link for later. That could be cool. I haven't read any of Jane's books. I think I have one, but I haven't read it. And also, Anita says, my two Spiffo books are Ghosts of the Sea Moon and Past Legends. Ghosts of the Sea Moon, I think, is more recent because I remember seeing that title cover for sure. Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Jim says, Clan of the Cave Bear is the best of the Jean Owl books, but it is quite thick. Yeah, that's why I'm like, for that 1981 book, I want it to be an easy one. But yeah, good point. Fair point. Let's see. What am I on here? Getting towards the end. We did the covers. Covers are done. Classic and its adaptation. So Sorceress Comes to Call is an adaptation of The Goose Girl, which I have not read. So as long as I can find a version of the Goose Girl folktale classic, then I'm good. And I'm figuring that I can find that in the children's section of the library somewhere, somehow. But I need to get on that. So I have done the protagonist names of 3 people you know. So in How to Catch a Duke, there was a Stephen, and I know several Stephens. In The Air, there was an Anna, and I know one Anna at least. And in Unclaimed, there was a Margaret, which is my name. So there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. Last prompt, a book for every season. I've done summer, fall, winter, The Key to You and Me, The X-Hex, and The Seed Keeper. So now I'm just on the lookout for a spring book that also, maybe The Goose Girl. Oh no, they can't be double dips. Okay, so maybe Left Hand of Darkness or Vicious is a spring. I doubt that. Maybe one of the book series. Nope, that can't be a double dip. What else could be a double dip? Well, nothing. So maybe an Irish book will be a double dip with spring. That seems likely. Dreaming. Nope. Danu's Curse. Maybe Danu's Curse is a spring book. Anyway, that's the fun of finding out like where you can plug stuff in. And if occasionally I'm stopped because I have a technical detail that I didn't account for, then so be it. I'll go back and find another one. But it's helpful when people point those little technical things out. Oh, okay. Ghost is older, but I updated the cover recently. Okay, gotcha. Nice. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. That was a long live stream. My goodness. Okay, I assume you guys don't have any questions because you're not participating, which is fine. But I don't know. Hopefully it was interesting seeing like how I'm plugging all those things in, the diversity of books that I'm reading, that I am stretching myself to read, and like finding books most of us have never heard of, books from the past, books that I pick up at used bookstores, etc. It's fun. It's like a treasure hunt. So yeah, so I've strategized about HRCYED first here, and then here, and now here. So like it's all over the place, but you know, it'll get on the bingo board and the tracker eventually, and we'll nail it before July comes. But yeah, I feel like I'm doing pretty well. The focus, the brain power will be less on HRCYED for March now that I've done this and it's out of the way, and more on drafting, because as I said, it's drafting month. It's only day 2. I've got half of my works done for today. But yeah, we'll be working hard to get a novel size body of work for book 2 this month. And I'll be reporting back on it. So far, so good. It's only day 2. So far, so good. And yeah, every Sunday during the streams, I'll give you an author update on the drafting process. So good luck to anyone else out there who is working on their current novel. And yeah, I don't know. I'm going to share word counts and whatever on Blue Sky, but you know, don't be bothered if you don't want to track any of that. I'll just have a fun update there. But yeah, thank you for being part of the reading community here and helping me get some good recommendations for books, for prompts, for readathons. And we'll see you again soon. Sundays and Wednesdays is my regular times for bookish opinions. So hopefully see you there, and take care, everyone. Happy reading.